You have already seen other content to give you an appreciation of what this is and why, but we'll dig a little bit deeper in the session.
Let's kind of define the capacity trap. And what we have kind of seen in the IT operating models, we see, for example, plan, build, and run. However, what seems true is that the most of the IT teams are consumed by run tasks. So they are either it's manual triage, it's patching, it's keeping the lights on, and really collectively as a team, they're working together as, hey, let's ensure as much green as possible on that dashboard. Challenge is what happens with that methodology is that what you get is alert fatigue. You get increased MTTR, you get reactive monitoring. But then it also leads to certain consequences for that particular team, which is constantly monitoring. And they're in this so-called, we say, is this endless loop. You get this team burnout, you get an endless loop of people capacity. And then you always get this same notion in the hearing that we say, and Paul will double click on it, which is, oh, business wanted IT to do things as of yesterday. We tend to identify symptoms and not issues. And because we are so overburdened with all this noise, we seem to be stuck in just doing that and no time for innovation. But more importantly, the impact is not just on internal teams, the impact is also on the customer experience. And what I mean by that is that the outages that you get to experience in a production environment are also significantly longer. They're harder to detect because it's now a complex environment with multi-cloud, cloud native, hybrid, etc. But more importantly, what happens with that is there's a lot of intrinsic knowledge that's required to support the ecosystem. As a VP of infrastructure, you not only have a challenge of operations or people, but then you also have a challenge of you cannot sustain that attrition. So the list goes on. So how is it that we shift from making the move from reactive IT to fixing what's broken to proactive IT, which is really predicting and preventing failures before they impact the customers? How do we silence the noise? How do we take those tsunami of alerts that we are seeing, and how do we get from 1,000 alerts to 2 for that same critical issue that we're seeing? And then more importantly, the faster we can understand the problem, the faster you can resolve it. So it's a faster root cause analysis as well, which decreases your mean time to recovery. So in summary, I would say is there's the human-only model of IT operations, which has kind of hit the wall by the sheer volume of telemetry that you get from all our IT ecosystem per se. It's now moving faster than your team can manually process. Paul.
And how did they get to this point? How did they get to the point where 95% of the tasks they do in IT is operate? It's their own success. It's true because the company has grown. And if the company has grown, then they've had to do more work. Company buys another company, there's more IT. The company has decided to go to cloud, there's more in different IT. The company acquires more SaaS products or goes to a third or fourth cloud, that's a multi-cloud environment, that's more IT. The company has a bunch of retail shops and they need to go into the edge, that's more IT, right? All of this has created a complex set of IT, a diversified set of IT, and that's hard to manage, hard to handle, hard to implement change, hard to automate, and therefore most of their time and energy is into reactive manual work, which happens to all be operating. When we look and we have conversations with CIOs and CTOs, they tend to readily admit that they do a lot of reactive work. Sometimes that reactive work is business asks for change, we implement change, and it goes in this big backlog. And every month we'll implement change in the window we have change for. Or they'll talk about once it's in production, how do I deal with the incidents? And when I receive an incident, I've got to look at the root cause. I have to determine where the problem might be, what type of infrastructure it needs to be. I have to bring everybody into a call because it might be multiple vendors inside and outside the company. And then I have to actually implement and evoke change. And sometimes the implementation of change to solve that incident requires the same amount of manual effort it took to promote that change into production in the first place. They want to move to a world where it's much more predictive, much more automated, where they have automated run books so that they can deliver much faster, much easier, they can implement more change. And if a production problem is occurring, the system automatically understands the root cause. The system automatically determines, I've seen this problem in the past. The system automatically determines what changes need to be implemented, and the system might automatically actually implement change. Right? So it's a very different world between focusing on manual change production and then manual incident resolution into a highly automated and highly predictive world. So we see when we have the conversation with the VP of infrastructure, we get pretty clear on sort of two sides of the coin from a problem set perspective. Side one is all of the effort it takes to implement change into production. And sometimes we don't really mean production here. We mean any of the infrastructure lifecycle, development, QA, UAT, production. But all of the effort, all the manual effort it takes to implement change through potentially dozens of systems, all this, the CI/CD, if you had to, all the scripting that has to take place, all the approvals that have to be true, all the things you can script and can't script, any of the things that requires a human in the loop for, that in many ways is manual because the third step of 20 steps is manual. And then once it's in production, how do I deal with the reactive nature of incident and problem management? How do I deal with root cause analysis from an automated perspective? How do I deal with automatically created and implementing run books? There's a lot of noise in production because I have a lot of human in the loop manual effort to resolve problems. So they have both sides of that equation, and we need AI to help solve both of them. Ernest, how do we help them? What's the result?
We want to say, hey, 30% reduction of production problems. That's really meaning, how do we actually ensure there's less incidents in the production environment, there's less MTTR or reduction of MTTR, which is mean time to recovery, of the production issue. So that way the customer is not impacted as a result. The customer, if you're an e-commerce platform, now has more buying time, which is, hey, I need to buy something else. But if there's a 404 error, i.e. The dread, you don't want to be experiencing that. You look at now external, let's talk about internal. And from an internal perspective, hey, you can see about 25% or more on a productivity from an innovation perspective. Core reason for that is because you're taking those engineering resources, as we talked about. Those are the high quality resources, the SMEs, which are now working on trying to solve the problem. Because if you recall, during an incident, the whole world's on that bridge. Everybody needs to resolve that problem. So now they're not focused on innovation. They're not focused on market leading innovations that they want to do, which is about revenue growth as well. Now, what we mean by increase in velocity, a change or the increase of speed in market. Now you have the ability to not work on run, but you have the ability to work on plan and build more. And what I mean by that is, and what Paul and myself mean by that, is now you have the ability to think through innovation. You have the ability to now say, hey, I can run and focus more on those implementation or innovation sprints rather than a production sprint to just resolve the problem. The 15% noise reduction, I think this number could be significantly higher because it's just due to the complexity of the environment and due to the number of data and due to the number of alerts that are there within the environment. So if you were to say, hey, I've got 1,000 or 2,000 tickets per month, how do I actually reduce those 2,000 tickets per month? But if you've been part of an incident, what usually happens is we see if there's an impact onto the website, you're going to see alerts all the way from the application layer to all the way to the database layer. Now there's CPU, memory, storage, et cetera, whatever it may be. So there's network as well. So how do you now correlate those events? So that is as part of that noise reduction, the correlation that needs to happen. That's really the engine that's going to, AIOps engine that drives that forward. And really, the incident reduction, you can look at job events. You can look at repetitive issues. You can look at, hey, I've got proactively, I want to be able to remediate an incident that's about to occur. You can proactively look at capacity of an infrastructure environment and make decisions accordingly as well. At the end of the day, if you combine all those things together, one of the core things that you want to achieve is the lowest MTTR that you can actually attain, which is all about the triage, all about the resolution, and it's all about utilizing your resources more effectively and efficiently within the organization to drive more productivity and innovation. Paul, over to you.
Good news, we have an amazing workshop to support the VP of Infrastructure and their direct reports. It's called AI for IT Operations Workshop, which is akin to the AI for People Workshop, AI for Finance Workshop, AI for People Productivity Workshop. The AI for IT Operations is specifically for that VP of Infrastructure, specifically focusing on the two sides of that coin. How do we look at ITIL 4, which is a set of capabilities that would describe the VP of Infrastructure's shop in many ways, right? How they would do work and how they would describe their work, how it would describe their org model, as an example. And how do we look at each one of those categories, both on the design time, on the code time, on the production or release time, and the operations time, in order to look for their level of maturity and the level of automation to which we can implement. So we look at each one of those four categories, and our friend Ernest will walk you through them.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So I would say, Paul, me and you, with our careers, you've definitely had a longer one than me. You tend to stop at 30, but that's okay. I would say we've collectively probably spend a significant amount of time on major incidents in those large enterprise organizations. And one of the things that I would say collectively we have learned together is that when there is a major incident within the environment, and mean time to resolution and mean time to recovery are probably two most critical, KPIs that you want to measure. The clock isn't just ticking against a technical failure; it's ticking against the company's revenue and reputation as well. So how do we kind of go through that and shift? The framework that we're kind of putting towards you is to talk about and incorporating the ITIL 4 framework, which not just talks about the entire ecosystem of service design and service capability and service deployment, but it also talks about how do you effectively go and manage how do you effectively go into incident management? How do you effectively go to problem management and change management? So if we look on the left side, it's all about really defining the SLOs and how you're going to meet the SLOs. So the business is actually happy in actually you can meet those defined SLOs and SLAs that have been published from that perspective onward. The bottom part, if you look at is, it's all about automation. It's about thinking through how do we look at not just doing a correlation of events, but the ability for an engineer to actually look at an incident ticket, actually look at a playbook that was there, and actually have an action that's defined to address that particular issue. So it could be, hey, I had a problem back in 2021 or even 2013 where the heap size increased to X amount, whatever it was. And the action that I took was I did this action to resolve that particular issue. Now you have an automated way of actually doing that. So now if we go back and look at it, we've kind of heard that phrase, which is data centers, the ability to have a data center that runs in an automated fashion. You are actually truly getting there in ensuring that your application uptime, your business uptime, and your IT uptime, which are all correlated together, are completely aligned. So making sure that there is no customer impact and you get to utilize your resources more efficiently.
And is that just in production? Is that just operate?
That I would say no, because I think as we talked about, which was plan, build, run, and operate, which is design, build, run, and operate as well. You should look at it as the uptime and also how you utilize the resources in each one of those phases more efficiently as well. And this is, by the way, in my personal view, a continuous improvement cycle as well. Regardless of the environment where you are in, you have to collectively keep on thinking through is what is going into production And when it comes back into production, how do you optimize it further at that point in time as well? So whether it is in design, you're going to look at, for example, identifying your high value use cases. You're going to select the right platforms, the models, the environment, etc. Build time is all about, hey, I need to think through what the models look like. I need to think through what the platform's going to look like. And I need to think through what the ingestion is going to look like, how the correlation is going to happen between the existing tools and the new tools, and think about that from that perspective. And really, AI for IT operations is all in one. How do you actively look at the anomalies? How do you constantly look at and evaluate and improve the alerts that are there and do further correlation from that perspective? All in all, if I look at this entire spectrum from left to right, people efficiency, people productivity, enhanced customer experience, and most importantly, it's also increasing revenue because of the fact that you have a significant increase in uptime.
IT infrastructure is a very hands-on keyboard environment, as we all know,
Yeah.
as we know within our own teams. And they tend to think in terms of how can I manage this via command line interface? What they tend to forget is that they have a full life cycle with the infrastructure team. They have a set of tasks that have been assigned to build requirements, right? They have a set of a task to build documents, and if they had a productivity tool set that would help them design and build those documents, that would be awesome. They also build a lot of scripts. They build a lot of code. One could argue that an IT infrastructure professional is as much as a developer as they are an infrastructure expert, and therefore the automation, the AI within the code development and test case creation and test execution is part and parcel of the automation that needs to be placed in the IT infrastructure, IT admin world. Then, of course, they think in terms of both run and operate, right? What does it take to run the systems once it's in production? And then what does it take to implement change? And the one thing I'll highlight in operate is we hear very, very frequently the problem of drift. Sometimes this is configuration or infrastructure drift, where they have multiple data centers, as an example, or the same application deployed in multiple places. And they want to make sure that the configuration hasn't drifted between one environment and the other, between dev, QA, UAT, and production, or between production 1, production 2, and production 3. Because when that drift occurs, that's when production problems are created. So just that problem set alone, to solve the drift problem, is where AI and automation takes place. So what are some examples, my friend?
Plenty of examples. I think what we'll say is that we're moving really from a world where you're chasing the infrastructure to a world where you're architecting it. And I think where AI really in between handles that friction from that perspective, where now you have the ability to look at data entry and processing. How do you automatically extract information from documents, categorizing emails, updating records, updating tickets, updating playbooks? You could have a template, but actually crafts that playbook from that perspective, and based on the action, you can go and update it as well. There's that whole view about report generation, how you're going to do insights. But I think it's also in addition that I will add on there, it's a whole view about conversational ops as well. The ability when an engineer has the ability to go and ask, hey, when has this memory leak happened in the past, and look at that reference, that particular ticket, it's actually, and suggest a script to fix it. It's kind of great to see that from automation as well. Scheduling administrative tasks. This is all about meetings, managing calendars, setting automated reminders, processing invoices. But more importantly, I think the ability for it to go and have an agentic view to it from an AIOps, which is, I have a set of problem, I have a set of playbook, what's the next action that I can do? So i.e., you're getting to somewhat of the dream of that lights out data center that I referenced before, which is low risk, high frequency issues like disk space cleaning, service restarts, load rebalancing, can all be handled by that agentic view or the AI agent with zero human intervention. Customer service is going to be core, and it's going to be critical, and it's going to be right up at front as well. Is how do you actually handle routine inquiries and triage, and maybe actually update to previous playbooks or previous responses as well. So that way you get greater CSATs as well from that perspective onward. And I think in the manufacturing space, or even to a certain degree in the healthcare manufacturing space, if I look at as well, the IT and OT and all those data that actually comes in as well. How do you actually improve the production line? They have KPIs from the start to the finish, and how do they actually go and improve those particular KPIs as well? So quality control and inspection, the manufacturing, the assembly, they all kind of go together from that perspective. But use cases galore, and we can help you define those particular use cases and work with any other customer that may be to kind of understand what the use cases are and how do you optimize them.
I hear we have a workshop for this.
You heard correctly, Paul. So I think, all in all, I think the workshop really is all about talking about or working with the customer, not just educating them on AI, AIOps, ITIL, differences in AIOps and ITIL, looking at the current IT landscape and challenges, really helping build an AIOps strategy document, and then also looking at discovery and prioritization of those use cases. So with that also, when we build that roadmap that you see at the bottom, as part of building the roadmap, there's also talking about, conversing about people and skill requirements as what they're going to be doing as well. So you kind of do that matrix as well to understand that. And when you actually build the POC use case with the roadmap, this is where kind of pitting comes in. And really the goal is to look at, from an AIOps perspective, I would say, the goal is really moving the organization from SLA compliance and what they have been doing in traditional IT ops to, I'm going to say, really the experience excellence. And what is it that they're doing to enhance the customer sat on an ongoing basis?
The most frequent ask in 2025 when we were reviewing workshops with prospects and customers as, show me the agenda.
Yeah.
This is the agenda to send them. And what's valuable about this particular agenda is it uses the words they're familiar with, right? The goal is to say, we think you don't know what some of these words mean. Let's create a shared vocabulary in AI. Let's review the ITIL implementation. And they're going to immediately push back and say, I don't subscribe to everything in ITIL. And we know that to be true and it's fine. But we need a bucketization conversation. They absolutely know, and they already prepared with a bunch of IT use cases that they've been asked to implement. And they need support and help to prioritize those use cases for the sort of biggest bang for that buck. And what they really know at the end is, do I need new skills? Do I need new people? Do I need new capabilities? Do I need new technology? Do I need to buy some stuff? And we can help them figure out what that means. And of course, every single IT team has a roadmap. Every single IT team has a set of sprints they want to implement. These are using the words that are familiar to them.
Paul, I'll add one thing to that before you go to the workshop. One of the other different things is that the previous workshops that we would do is we would do a full discovery of those use cases. We would give them a sheet. We'd say, hey, populate those use cases regardless, how many of them are BI or how many of them are AI, and we kind of go through that. In this particular case, not only are we using and understanding their ecosystem, we understand that far better. But more importantly, what we're doing is we're actually defining some of the use cases based on our experiences that we bring forward to them as well. So it's making them think outside of the box. And once you really start using those use cases, then you have a follow-on to determine where they are, let's say in their cloud strategy, where are they in their data strategy, where are they in their security strategy, and then we could actually do further follow-on workshops with that as well.
Right. Now, of course, we have 1 day, 2 day, and 3 day versions of this IT operations AI workshop. Of the 1 day, that's kind of the out of the box 15K, where we'll do education activation, the activation specific to the ITIL 4 activation. So we'll review with them what each one of that means, how we would put their capabilities into that model. identify areas of use case automation and prioritize them for them. If we go for the 2 days, then we start to go a little bit deeper on risk mitigation, right? We'll do a plan and governance framework for reducing risk, if that's definitely one of the major goals. And we'll do an AI readiness assessment, so we can double click on whether they have the tools, techniques, the people, the expertise to support that. If we go 3 days, we'll do all of the work in the 1 and the 2 days, but then we'll do a much more detailed AI roadmap and an integration plan into their existing set of deployment and sprints to support. And of course, as you learned in the last presentation, this is just the first step. The outcome of the workshop is more work. Sometimes that's going to be, we think you should implement Gemini Enterprise. Sometimes that's going to be, we need to do a deeper evaluation of your technology to figure out where we should create this automation. Some of it will be features and functions and applications. Some of it we will have to build. And then finally, we will build things, right? We have a AI build team. Thank you.